Hey everyone, Chris Lopez here, and welcome to another podcast episode. Today we'll be doing a deal analysis on a 6-unit multifamily in Aurora that we helped an out-of-state investor close on in Q3 2020. And here to talk to me about it is Preston Newberry. Preston, how's it going?
It's going great, Chris. Thanks for having me back in the studio. I'm looking forward to talking about this deal. This was kind of a crazy one as the timing coincided with a lot of the 2020 events of the COVID situation. So working with an out-of-state client and tenant-occupied property while all this was going on definitely added some complexity to the situation for sure.
That was very well said and an understatement. So yes, but it actually turned out to be just, I think a really good deal, especially with all the stuff going on. So Preston, kind of give the overview on the property, the background, all that stuff.
Yeah, so this property was one that had been sitting on the MLS for a while. I think just timing with everything that had happened kind of made it a little bit stagnant. Initially, I think it was overpriced a little bit as well, but it was a very reasonable seller. Obviously, they were looking to get top dollar out of it, but knew where the market was and what was going on. And whenever we kind of reached out to them and chatted with them, it was clear to me that they were a very experienced seller and somebody that cared very much about their property. Turns out they have many hundreds of units around town, and so they were just moving this one to 1031 and to do some other things with their portfolio. So we know this area very well. We do a lot of deals over in this area, particular on this one street even. And so, it was just a fit that worked out well, and everybody was kind of on the same page to just get the deal done and do whatever we had to do to make it happen. So.
And our client, he's an out-of-state investor with experience in the 5+ commercial space or multifamily space, commercial world. He's done quite a few rehabs, knows how to handle those projects. So that's another thing that made it, a deal we could do, is that he was looking for a project where there was some value add, and this fit the bill, and so we were able to put it together. So getting into some more of the details here, let's talk about the actual layout of the property, because this is always interesting to me in multifamily.
Yeah.
Hey, what's the layout? Is it up, down? How many units? How many bedrooms? How many baths? Give us, paint us a picture of walking the property.
Yeah, so 6 units, basically the 4 interior units are going to be the 2-bed, 1-bath units. So those are going to be, 2 units up, 2 units down. And then in capping the building is going to be the larger 3-bed units. So really a nice layout, done very well. And the seller has taken really good care of this property. As I mentioned, they have a lot of units around town, and it was something that they held near and dear to their heart, and definitely did the right thing. So the cool thing about it, it had solar, really good landscaping.
And parking. The solar is very unique. That's the first time I've seen it on.
That's the first deal I've done.
Yeah,
in an investment property that had that. So again, it was a lot of the little things that just kind of added some value and added, some desire for this property. So worked out well.
What I liked about it was the location, the fact that it was in good shape, and there were a couple of 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom units. Definitely those 3-bedroom, 2-bath units are more the minority when it comes to, buying in multis. A lot of, 1-1s, 2-1s.
Yep.
3-2s are just a lot upside there.
And it's always nice to have a little bit of a unit mix, right? Obviously we come across a lot of stuff where all the units are the same, and so just adds to the viability of the building and being able to increase rents and do that stuff when you have a little bit of a different unit mix.
And what was the value add play there? Because I know, if I recall correctly, I think there was some value there with rents and some updating the units. What was the play there?
Nothing too crazy, and that was a nice thing. It was just a nice, easy, kind of go in and update some units. Whenever the seller purchased it, I think it was 8 or 9 years ago, they had gone in and done a lot of updating at that point. So, it wasn't like it was straight from the 1950s or 60s when the building was built and needed to be completely redone. Mostly just a lot of cosmetic stuff. So, it wasn't going to be anything that was super crazy, but also along with that, you're going to be able to increase rents quite a bit. And that was the captivating upside for us here on this one, was knowing, hey, we can go in, do a little bit of updating. It's not going to cost a lot of money relatively, compared to what we're seeing out there right now. And the upside was going to be able to get it above, or at least, at market rents, and really increase the cash flow for the buyer.
And so this property was listed right around the mid-9s, and we actually got it on contract, the final price around the mid-8s. So almost about $100,000 less than what the original the original list price was. And as you said, probably overpriced a little bit, but I think the real double whammy was it got listed right before COVID.
Yeah, it was listed
and
right
that
before COVID.
threw the curveball into it.
And that just put everybody, the brakes on everybody for looking at a lot of stuff. And so, we watched it. I had seen this property come on the market, and when I originally saw it, kind of overlooked it a little bit just because I knew it was overpriced. And then, as things started to move and the economy came back around a little bit, we just
and so did commercial lending.
Yeah, and so did commercial lending. We kind of took a second look at it, and I reached out to the seller because I knew it would be a really good fit for our client. And we were able to put a deal together that was good for everybody.
And so let's actually talk about, you got under contract, negotiated a very good price on there.
And of course, one of those things, nobody had made an offer on it until we decided to put an offer in. And then all of a sudden, somebody else wants it too. So we were competing, I think, with at least one, if not two other offers. But that was kind of the nice thing, is that we had a good reputation and good relationship with the seller. So we were able to get it under contract.
What was the inspection process like? Because, hey, multifamily, as a lot of investors and listeners know, multifamilies usually come with a mixed bag and a lot of times deferred maintenance.
Yeah, so again, just circling back around to how well these guys had taken care of this property because they cared for it so much, there were not a lot of major issues with this place. We obviously went in and did our inspection, but knowing we were going to go in, or at least the buyer was going to go in and rehab the units, a lot of the minor stuff was not an issue. We just wanted to make sure roof, sewer, electrical, the major systems in the property were good. The only thing that came up to us was a little bit of a sewer line issue, and the seller was very amicable. We agreed on some terms to settle that and move on with everything. So that was really the only issue we had.
And you just get a concession for the sewer?
Yep, we just got a concession. We basically split it because it wasn't something that needed to be repaired right away, but was going to need to be taken care of at some point in the future. So, we just kind of came to an agreement, and everybody was happy with it.
All right, so talking about the financing side, as we've mentioned in previous podcasts, everyone knows, what's happened with residential rates and probably with commercial lending. Commercial lending took the biggest roller coaster ride through COVID.
It basically went to a brick wall for a minute.
Yeah, about 6 to 8 weeks, it seemed like that world kind of froze, and we were getting some crazy quotes from banks. Luckily, we were able to just dig through our network, and he's now become our go-to commercial guy. He's a commercial broker, has relationships with banks around town, and knows how to find the right bank that has the right risk appetite and portfolio need from their lending aspect based on the property and also based on the buyer, whether he's in-state, out-of-state, what his profile, her profile is like.
And that's the nice thing about working with him is he very much has the same mindset that we do when we work with our clients in finding a property. He takes that same process and applies it to the loan side so that you're not just locked into one box. We can go find a lender that's going to be a really good fit for that property and that buyer.
And actually for this one, interestingly enough, we'd actually gotten a quote from someone, actually being another bank we've done deals with in the past, and they were saying it's all good. And then on 3 or 4 days after
I think we got about a week into the process and got an email from them that, hey, our credit department has basically said we're not taking on any new business right now. We can't do this.
Yeah. Which is never what you want to hear.
No, not at all. But luckily, our lending partner was able to pivot and go find a new bank to work with, a new lending partner for them, and everything basically went on down the road. We were able to close still on our original closing date, which was great.
And the other thing I'll mention is this is just kind of the nuance of the contract is that as you were managing and putting the contract together, you're on top of the dates and deadlines. We were ahead of some financing terminations, all those due diligence stuff. So that's always what we want to make sure our clients in position for as well.
Yep, we're always there to protect our clients and their earnest money and make sure we do the best job for them. And a lot of that just comes down to communicating, right? If you let the other side know what's going on, hey, here's where we're at. Everybody is on the same page. At the end of the day, we just want to get a deal done. We want to make a win-win for everybody.
And so, I was with this deal for the ones we've done, I've been very pleasantly impressed with some of the terms we've seen in the commercial lending world because a lot of them are kind of similar to what they were before COVID at this point.
Yep.
So this one came in right around about 3.75% interest rate on a 30-year amortization, but 3 years fixed, but no prepayment penalty, which is important for our client here because he was going to come in and as units turned, come here and start rehabbing them, update them, raise the rents, stabilize it, and then wants to do a longer-term financing piece, whether it's pull-out money or non-recourse loan. And when that happens, if you have a 3, 2, 1, a lot of times there are tiered prepayment penalties. when you go to refinance, that can be a pretty big chunk of money.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, that's the other nice thing about having a lending partner that understands what the game plan is and what's going on, and knowing that, hey, this is going to be kind of a short-term thing. I mean, it's going to be 12 to 18 months max, and that they're going to go in and refinance. And so, when you look at it in that way, interest rate and some of those terms aren't as important, but being able to make sure that you've got a good exit strategy for when you do go to refinance.
Yes. So we're going to go through the spreadsheet now. We're going to go through the current, which is kind of the as-is when our client purchased it. We'll run through those numbers, and we'll kind of go through what the pro formas we expect to be are and how that plays out. So to keep it simple, just for as we describe this over a podcast and in the blog post, we're using Joe's rental spreadsheet, and we're just plugging the numbers in here because it still shows cash flow and cap rates, which are the important things, without getting into the really advanced spreadsheets, which will put some people to sleep while listening to a podcast. So plugged in 25% down payment, purchase price around the mid-8s, total cash investment right around $250,000, plugged in the interest rate of 3.7. Now in the rents here, we have about $6,900 in total rents and about $130 a month in, that's laundry income, right?
Laundry income, yep. Yeah. That was the other nice thing. I didn't mention this previously, but the added bonus to this building was it did have laundry, which is
like a laundry room?
Yeah, it had a laundry room down
so
in the
coin operated?
Yep. So just another added bonus for the buyer.
So altogether about $7,100 in gross rent and laundry income. We plugged in our standard 5% vacancy, 3% rent, 3% appreciation, standard assumptions we use. We plugged in property management. Again, 10% is what we used here, being very conservative.
Very conservative.
Actual PM cost is what, about 7% on here?
Yep, 6 to 8, depending on who you use and kind of how it plays out. But yeah, we always like to be conservative.
Why do we round up?
Because you're going to have other additional fees, right, that we can't take into account with a percentage point. So at that point, hey, you're going to have lease-up fees, you're going to have turn costs, some of those things. So again, let's err on the side of caution.
And that's our just kind of keep it simple, stupid underwriting, keep it really simple for math, and we found rounding up a few points works out pretty good. We put in 8% there for just general repairs, reserves, and CapEx, which it sounds like since this is in pretty good shape, and especially going and rehab the units, I mean, it'll probably be less than that.
I would definitely expect it to be a lot less. Being a solid brick structure, minimal landscaping, parking lot was in good shape. I think, they'll be pleasantly surprised with, lower maintenance reserves.
No HOA, taxes about $7,300, insurance is about $3,300 a year, utilities, water and sewer is about $4,800 a year, and I'm assuming it's like most multis, there's just one water sewer tap, right?
Correct.
How was the electric and gas? Are those individually meters, 1 meter?
So gas and electric were both individually metered. Because of the solar and all that stuff going on, they weren't doing any kind of a RUB system. It was basically just included in their leases and paid by the owner.
But it's still all individual electric?
Yes.
Oh, okay. The solar is definitely an interesting curveball into here.
A little bit of a curveball, yeah.
So for trash, about $2,500 a year. I'm assuming that's probably dumpster service, right?
Correct.
About $3,000 for Excel, so gas, electric, common areas, I guess, whatever. Mostly probably gas bills for that.
Mostly gas, yeah.
And about $1,200 a year for landscaping. Is that snow removal in general just...
Yeah, so this was another kind of interesting thing is that the previous seller would actually employ one of the tenants to do the snow removal, landscaping, lawn mowing, watering, all that kind of stuff, and worked out a deal with them depending on what season it was and what work they were doing to give them a credit on their rent. So this is actual numbers as to what they equated to and what they provided for them.
All right, so going to the rent analysis, this is going to be about $8,800 a year in annual cash flow before taxes. And I'll back this up one step. This is going to be about $43,500 in net operating income, minus about $35,000 in mortgage servicing, mortgage debt, leaves you about $8,800 in cash flow before taxes. So a 4.1% cash on cash return and a 5.2% cap rate, which in Denver market still pretty good numbers for just as is.
Yeah, it's pretty average. I mean, it's not bad. And that was one of the nice things here is that even if they decided to do nothing, they still knew that they were going to have a decently performing property.
And there's a chance where they knew this, hey, if we go in there and want to, turn the units, everything's going to take a little bit longer now because of COVID and, all this stuff. So, hey, great, if the turn times take longer, they are still sitting in the property's paying for itself, cash flow positive. and everything's very conservative numbers. So
Yep.
yeah, it's great. So altogether about a 5.2% cap rate, and this is the current. So let's walk through the pro forma. So same spreadsheet, pretty much all the same numbers, but we'll just highlight a few differences here. We put about 40,000 in there for the initial repair cost.
Correct.
And what was the scope of work for the repair cost?
I mean, most of it's just going to be kind of paint, carpet, some of the cosmetic stuff. There's really nothing major that they have to do. And so, I think it's going to be pretty easy to scale that up with, getting all the same finishes inside each unit. Maybe end up doing some kitchen cabinets in a couple of them, but overall it's going to be pretty light touch-up stuff.
And then we have all the total rents at about $8,100, which is about, what, $1,100, $1,200 more than the current, I think. So a nice rent bump up there, and I think we actually underwrote those pretty conservative still with those numbers we underwrote,
We did,
right?
especially knowing we were going into some COVID times and not wanting to, be too far in the sky with rent numbers, but yeah, very conservative.
Yeah, and these are rent numbers that our property manager, Ellie, at Arrowwood, gave us, and again, more on the conservative side. We'd always rather be like, hey, kind of here's the realistic conservative, and hopefully we're a little bit above it.
Yep.
But we like to be realistic, conservative is our motto. And then with the laundry income, which would say about the same, right?
Yeah, we just kept that the same.
Altogether, gross income is around $8,250. So that's a good $1,200 above, I think, the current one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All the other assumptions are the same. Just change the initial repair cost, update the rents. As far as property management, still 10%. Repairs and reserves, 8%. Taxes, insurance, utilities, all that stayed exactly the same. So going into the Proforma cash flow tab here, the NOI bumps up quite a bit to about $54,000. Mortgage debt is staying the same because this is still assuming the original loan that he used to purchase the property before doing a refinance.
Correct.
That's in the future, a lot harder to judge. But altogether, that creates about a $19,000 annual cash flow before taxes. So
That's a big
nice
jump
bump
up from 8,800, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take that. But here's a great thing. Now bumps up from about a 7.5% cash-on-cash return and a 6.1% cap rate, which, again, the way we underwrite these, this is, one of the things that we debate with other investors and a lot of times other agents as we're looking at
Yep.
their offering memorandum and numbers. When we are saying it now, it's a 7.5% cap, a 6.1 cap and a 7.5% cash-on-cash return. We're still including the initial purchase price, the acquisition cost, but we're underwriting into there also that $40,000 estimated repair cost. So a lot of people say, hey, I'm buying this at, X amount of dollars, and then I put this money and raise the rent. Oh, now it's this cap rate. Well, in our eyes,
You still had to put money in the property,
Yeah.
right? That's
We
still
think
money
that's a
out
more
of
accurate
pocket.
way, yeah.
Yep.
and so we say, hey, we're going to calculate the cap rate, but we need to account for that extra 40 grand he's putting in here. So let's put that in these calculations. So that's actually with an extra 40 grand repair cost we tacked on to the purchase price to try to give a more accurate number. Without that, it's more like if you were to do a more standard underwriting, it's more like a 6.5 cap to about an 8% cash on cash return. So even better numbers.
I mean, I get excited when I look at the ones we're looking at now at a 6.1 cap. So,
Exactly.
I mean, plenty of upside there.
And as we said kind of earlier, good upside here. The property pays for itself, and then once it's stable, or once it's updated, stabilized. A lot of times lenders want to see a 6 month or so stabilized property before they'll do a refinance. Options there to possibly pull out some capital depending on how the numbers pan out. But also hopefully put in a non-recourse loan to do a longer term type
just secure
refinance.
that long-term debt service.
So just overall, a very good transaction, a great long-term play with some value add, and definitely in this, the 5 year and above, this is where we've been seeing probably the most value add space.
I would agree. I
A
think
lot harder in the 2 to 4 unit range.
Yeah, that 2 to 4 unit range is really hard just because you have a lot of the, residential general public, looking at those properties as well as opposed to the investor side of things. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in that, 6 to 10 unit space.
Yeah. So if you guys have questions on this, definitely reach out. We can walk through numbers. If you want to get into these types of properties or buy one, reach out to me, reach out to Preston. We're seeing more deal flow come our way from our network, from the properties we hunt. So definitely want to get something, reach out to us. All right. Thank you for listening. And Preston, thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Chris. Always a pleasure.